Hello and welcome to my Specialization Introduction and Outdoor Content Guide for the Restoration Shaman in World of Warcraft Battle for Azeroth. If you haven't watched the primer video for this series, I recommend that you do that now. There'll be a link in the description below, and that video will help get you up to speed on what we're doing in this one. So we're here on our Restoration Shaman. We've got our action bars visible and empty. If we jump into our talents, we can see that these are the talents you should choose to fulfill the requirements laid out in the primer video. Now that that's set up, we will jump into our spellbook. But before we start organizing our spells, I want to make it very clear this is an outdoor content guide for the Restoration Shaman. It's about how to level and farm and quest. It is not about dungeon and raid healing, and as such, we will be ignoring and underemphasizing some of the abilities and talents that would work well in those situations. So keep that in mind as we go forward. And with that said, let's jump in. We're going to start organizing our spells. I won't be going in depth into every single one of these, but I will give you a brief description so you know what the spell does and you can understand why it's going where it is. The first ability we have is Ancestral Spirit. This is our resurrection spell. It can only be used out of combat to bring a friendly player back to life. So that's going to go in our miscellaneous spells area. Ancestral Vision is the multi-target version of that. It will resurrect all dead party members. So we'll put that there as well. Astral Recall kind of works as a Hearthstone. Wherever you have your Hearthstone set, you'll be able to use Astral Recall to get back there instead. It has a short cooldown. So you got kind of like some extra Hearthstone charges with this ability. Then we have Astral Shift. This is a defensive ability that will provide you with some damage reduction. Capacitor Totem stuns all enemies in the area of effect of the totem. That's a crowd control ability. Chain Heal, we're going to put in our combat utility over here on the right side. Probably not going to use it that often, but it is a heal that will heal the target and then bounce to up to 3 other targets. So kind of a multi-target heal. Chain Lightning is part of our core rotation. Earth Elemental is a defensive cooldown we can activate. It summons a giant Earth Elemental that will taunt and tank for us and protect us. Earthbind Totem slows all targets in its area of effect. That's a crowd control ability. Farsight allows us to see a viewpoint way off in the distance. It's kind of a fun ability we use outside of combat, so that goes in our miscellaneous section. Flame Shock is part of our core rotation. Ghost Wolf is a combat utility ability. It turns us into a wolf and gives us some increased movement speed. Healing Rain is an ability we're going to put down here on the right-hand side. This will, it's a targeted AoE heal. It'll heal everyone in the area. Healing Stream Totem is a offensive cooldown you can use. You can put it down and it will passively heal injured party members within its area of effect, namely you if you're out there by yourself, so you can use that there. Healing Surge is the main heal we're going to be using to cast on ourselves. It's quick, costs a lot of mana, but heals for a pretty good amount. Healing Tide Totem is a offensive cooldown you can use. It puts out a totem that pulses and will heal all party and raid members within 40 yards for a certain amount, so it heals them all at the same time, unlike the Healing Stream Totem that will heal an injured party member. Healing Wave is a mana-efficient heal. Probably not going to use it too often, but it is a good single-target heal if you're worried about conserving your mana. Heroism is an actual offensive cooldown ability that will increase haste for you, your party, and your raid, and then it goes on a long cooldown and you can't be affected by it for a while. Hex will transform your enemy into a frog, basically making them unable to do anything. Damage can cancel the effect. It's a crowd control ability. Lava Burst is part of our core rotation. Lightning Bolt is as well. We have Purge. This will remove a beneficial magic effect from an enemy. Probably not going to use that too often in outdoor content. Same with Purify. This will remove a curse or magic effect from a friendly target. Riptide is another heal we're going to use pretty often because it's instant cast, has a short cooldown. It does a good amount of healing initially and then also puts a healing over time buff on you that will continue to heal you after you've cast it. So this is a good ability to kind of spot heal yourself while you're getting attacked. Spirit Link Totem is a defensive ability. It will put down a totem and all party members and raid members within 10 yards will have their health restabilized every second so that everybody's health is the same. So it's an interesting defensive cooldown that you're probably not going to use that often in open world content. Spirit Walker's Grace is a combat utility ability. It's got a long cooldown, but it allows you to move while you cast your spells for 15 seconds. Water walking will let us walk on water. Damage taken will cancel the effect, so you're usually using this out of combat to travel from place to place. That'll go in our miscellaneous section. And then finally we have Wind Shear. This is our interrupt ability to cancel someone's spell casting. It goes in our crowd control section. Those are all the active abilities for the Restoration Shaman, so let's talk about the resources available. The Restoration Shaman has access to mana, and that's it. You start combat with a certain amount of mana based on usually your intellect, and you will spend that mana to cast spells, and if you run out of that resource, then you aren't able to cast a large majority of your spells. So, that being said, let's jump in and talk about the core rotation for the Restoration Shaman. So we've got 4 abilities over here. It's not crazy exciting. We are primarily a healing specialization. We've got a little bit of damage output, and that's what we're going to be using on our targets. So you're going to want to open up by casting Flame Shock on your target. This will deal a good amount of damage, has a 6-second cooldown, but it puts a damage over time debuff on the target that deals a large amount of damage to the target. After you cast your Flame Shock, you're going to want to cast Lava Burst. Lava Burst has an 8-second cooldown. It does a pretty good amount of damage to the target, but it's guaranteed to critically strike if your target has Flame Shock, the Flame Shock debuff on them. So that's why you want to start with Flame Shock, then you'll cast your Lava Burst. That'll go on cooldown, and then you will either use Lightning Bolt or Chain Lightning depending on the situation. Against a single target, you will use Lightning Bolt. It's just a 1.7 second cast ability that does some damage to a single target. Against multiple targets, you'll use Chain Lightning. This also has a 1.7 second cast. It does less damage to your primary target, but that damage will jump to nearby enemies and it will affect up to 3 total targets. So, pretty straightforward. You're going to cast your Flame Shock, cast your Lava Burst. Against a single target, you're going to start casting your Lightning Bolt. When your Lava Burst comes off cooldown, you're going to want to cast that again. And you're going to want to make sure that if your Flame Shock is about to expire on your target, then you recast that and keep that damage over time buff going. Now, in a multiple target situation, you're going to do the exact same thing. So we're going to pick our target, we're going to Flame Shock, we're going to Lava Burst, and this time, instead of Lightning Bolt, we're going to cast Chain Lightning. And you're going to see this jump to up to 3 targets. And then our Lava Burst comes off cooldown, so we cast that, go right back to our Chain Lightning. And when our Flame Shock's getting low, we can recast that, and Lava Burst is off cooldown, so we cast that. Now you may be wondering what this graphic is, and for that we need to get into the passive abilities of the Restoration Shaman. Now most of our passive abilities affect our healing in some way, so they're not super relevant to us killing things, but we do have one passive ability that helps us do that. Before we get to that, let's cover the other passive abilities first. So Tidal Waves are casting our Chain Heal, which we're not really using, and our Riptide, which is our instant cast heal that we are probably going to use pretty often. Will reduce the cast time of your next healing wave, which once again, we're probably not going to use. That's our mana efficient big heal by 30%, or more importantly, it will increase the critical effect chance of your next healing surge, which is our fast healing ability that we'll use pretty often, by 40%. This will stack up to 2 times. So let's bring that around to what we're actually doing. When we cast Riptide, it will increase the critical effect chance of our next healing surge by 40%, and that can stack up to 2 times. So we cast Riptide, and we get our Tidal Waves buff, and that will mean that the next time we cast our Healing Surge, it has a really high chance to critically strike. Next, we have Resurgent, your direct heal criticals. So anything that's directly healing a target and is not a heal over time buff or something like that, have a chance to, they will refund a percentage of your maximum mana. That changes depending on the spell. For the spells that we're going to use, we get 0.6% of our mana back from a critical healing surge or Riptide. And that's pretty much the only one that's really relevant to us. So when we critical hit, or when we critically heal with our healing surge or Riptide, we'll get 0.6% of our mana back. Kind of boring. Not super relevant in outdoor content. We have reincarnation. Every shaman has this. When you die, you're able to resurrect yourself with 20% health and mana, but you can only do this every 30 minutes. Next, we have our mastery. This increases the healing from our spells based on how much health the target has. If the target has less health, we heal for more. So this is nice. This applies to us in outdoor content. The lower our health is, the more our spells are going to heal. So that's pretty nice. Now, on to the passive that's actually really relevant to our outdoor content rotation that we're using, Lava Surge. This will make your Flame Shock damage have a 20% chance to reset the remaining cooldown on Lava Burst and cause it to be an instant cast ability. So, normally our Lava Burst has an 8-second cooldown and takes 1.7 seconds to cast. We're putting our Flame Shock onto the target because that makes our Lava Burst critically strike. Every time our Flame Shock is dealing its damage with that damage over time debuff, there's a 20% chance that it's going to cause our Lava Burst to flash yellow. We're going to see that lava graphic on the sides of our characters, and that means that whatever cooldown was on Lava Burst is going to be totally gone, and we'll be able to hit it and instantly cast it against a target. So let's go down and see if we can get that to proc. This doesn't really change your rotation. You're still following the same rules. Get your Flame Shock up, cast your Lava Burst, then go into your Lightning Bolts or Chain Lightning depending on the number of targets, and anytime Lava Burst is off cooldown, you're going to hit it. So anytime you get that proc from Lava Surge, you want to hit that, or if you don't get it, you still want to cast your Lava Burst when it's off cooldown. And that's it. That's the core rotation for the Restoration Shaman. Not a whole lot to it. The next thing we're going to do is get into our talents and see if we can create a build that works well in open world content, maybe gives us a little bit more damage, a little bit more utility. So we're going to set that up now. Alright, so this is the build that I recommend you use in outdoor content. It's not the only one you could use, but it's the one I recommend, and we'll be showing off at the end of this video. We're going to go through each talent, talk about what it does and why we've picked it, starting with Torrent. Torrent will increase the initial heal from Riptide by 30%, so our nice instant cast heal here will heal for even more initially, and that's really going to help us in outdoor content if our health is getting low. Echo of the Elements. So the important thing here is that our Lava Burst is getting more charges, but our Riptide, Healing Stream Totem, and Lava Burst now have 2 charges, so we can cast Riptide twice on ourselves quickly if we want, or we can use our little Healing Stream Totem, and I'll just put that down. You can see that here, and it's just going to passively heal us. Those have 2 charges. But now our Lava Burst has 2 charges as well. And this is good for a couple of reasons. So first off, we can go Flame Shock, Lava Burst, then go into Lightning Bolt or Chain Lightning. But also, effects that reset the remaining cooldown of our Lava Burst, such as our Lava Surge, will instead give you a charge of it. It will still make it instant cast, but this means that if our Lava Burst is on cooldown, we can get back-to-back procs of Lava Surge and have those as charges and they don't get wasted. So this does help us increase our damage output ever so slightly. So that's why we're taking this one. Next, we have Spirit Wolf. While transformed into a Ghost Wolf, you gain 5% increased movement speed and 5% damage reduction every 1 second, stacking up to 4 times. So by default, switching it to Ghost Wolf gives us 30% movement speed. But now we're going to start seeing our Spirit Wolf build up. And after 4 seconds, we're going to have a total of 50% increased movement speed. And we're going to get a nice 20% damage reduction buff as well, which is going to help us when we're running from place to place and there are enemies, randomly hitting us and throwing stuff at us. All that damage is going to deal 20% less. Then we have Earthen Wall Totem. This is a defensive cooldown you can use. It's got a 1 minute cooldown. It summons a totem with health that is the same as yours, same amount of health as you have, for 15 seconds, and a portion of damage from each attack that is done to any allies within 10 yards of the totem is redirected to the totem. So it will passively just shave some damage off. So this is good to pop when you are fighting a bunch of enemies or a couple enemies that hit really hard. Excuse me. Next up, we have Graceful Spirit. This reduces the cooldown of Spirit Walker's Grace by 60 seconds. So now instead of a 2 minute cooldown, we have a 1 minute cooldown. Remember, this is the ability that allows us to cast our spells while moving. And it also will increase your movement speed by 20% while it's active. So if you find yourself never needing to use this, you can still get a nice 20% movement speed burst every minute or so. But more importantly, sometimes you want to kite an enemy around and get it to chase you while you can deal damage to it and it can't hit you. And being able to cast Spirit Walker's Grace every minute to do something like that is, it's a nice handy kind of utility talent that we can take there. Now the last two tiers here are very focused on healing. So I went ahead and took the abilities that gave me more heals that I could cast in more situations. So the first one is Downpour. This creates a burst of water at the target that heals up to 6 injured allies for a fairly good amount. And the cooldown gets increased by 5 seconds for each target that is healed. Usually if you're just casting this on yourself, then you're not going to have any increased cooldown. You'll see it'll be 5 seconds. You get a nice heal. It's a cool effect. And then the other talent we have is Wellspring. This has a 20-second cooldown, and this will create a surge of water that flows forward in a wide arc. Boom. And it will heal all targets within that area. So not a whole lot changes to our rotation with these talents. We can get the main talent that we want to focus on here is our Echo of the Elements, giving us that second charge of Lava Burst, which gives us a little more damage. I'm going to go over here and cast that Wellspring just so you can see how it's going to heal all those people there. So now our rotation basically becomes cast Flame Shock, cast Lava Burst twice, and then go into Lightning Bolts or Chain Lightning, depending on the situation. Anytime Lava Burst is off cooldown, you're going to want to cast it, making sure that you always have Flame Shock up so that your Lava Bursts will do their guaranteed critical damage. Okay, so that is the build. Let's talk quickly about the PvP talents you can take if you want to toggle on War Mode and mainly focus on PvP. Some of these abilities do give us some damage buttons we can push. But first off, I recommend that you take Relentless. This will replace your Honorable Medallion, turn it into a passive ability that will reduce the duration of incoming crowd control effects by 20%. So just a nice set it and forget it talent. Then we have Sky Fury Totem. This is an ability on a 40-second cooldown. It summons a fire totem, and it will increase the critical effect of damage and healing spells of all nearby allies within 40 yards by 20% for 15 seconds. So this is a nice ability because you're going to critically strike with your Lava Burst when you've got your Flame Shock up. So this will increase the effect of that damage by 20%. So this is a nice ability to pop when you're fighting a rare spawn or an elite. Next, we have Counter Strike Totem. This is an ability on a 45-second cooldown. It summons an air totem, and whenever enemies within 20 yards of the totem deal direct damage, so hit you with a melee attack or a spell or whatever, the totem deals 100% of that damage back to the attacker. So this is another button you can push if you're fighting a bunch of enemies for whatever reason. This totem will reflect all their damage back at them, thereby increasing the amount of damage that you're doing and helping you to kill those enemies faster. Finally, we have Spectral Recovery. While in Ghost Wolf, you heal 3% health every 2 seconds, and this increases the movement speed of Ghost Wolf by an additional 10%. So, as a healer, we probably don't need to worry too much about having that healing in Ghost Wolf, although sometimes you will find yourself in a situation where you're getting a little bit overwhelmed, and being able to switch to Ghost Wolf form, run around kind of in a circle and try to get away from your enemies, get the 20% damage reduction we're getting from Spirit Wolf, and heal 3% of your health every 2 seconds is pretty nice. But as a healer, hopefully we're keeping ourselves topped up fairly well. This is just nice for the additional 10% movement speed, because now you'll have 60% movement speed in Ghost Wolf, and that can really get you around in different places, especially areas where you can't mount, like caves and inside of buildings and things like that. So these are the PvP talents I recommend that you take. The next thing to do is get this build out into the open world, try it out against some different enemies. So I'm going to cut to that, and I'll see you there. Alright, so we're here in Suramar City, and we're going to fly down and try out this build against a couple different types of enemies. So we'll go ahead and go on down. Remember, we want to open with our Flame Shock, then we're going to cast our double Lava Burst if we need to. In that case, we didn't. Between enemies, you can switch into Ghost Wolf form. You don't need to switch out of it to cast your abilities. So we'll go ahead and do that. Lava Burst was on cooldown, so we'll cast our Lightning Bolt. We'll come over here. We can use our Chain Lightning. That guy jumped over to us. I was trying to pull a couple of enemies with the Chain Lightning, but he came over to us anyway. Alright, so we'll get our Flame Shock up. We'll go into our Lava Burst into Lightning Bolt. Switch to that target. Now, you want to, most of the time, you want to make sure, like in that case, you know, I just threw my Lava Burst at that guy without worrying about having Flame Shock, but you almost always want to put Flame Shock up first, just because you get a guaranteed critical out of it. Now, as you can see, we're doing pretty good damage against single targets here. The build doesn't feel too bad. However, where you want to watch yourself is when you get into combat against multiple targets, which is what we're going to do here. Now, pretty much the only way you're going to be able to handle multiple targets on the Restoration Shaman is if you use your defensive cooldown abilities, because you don't really have the damage output necessary to kill things off really quickly and kind of deal with it that way. So you have to, let's go ahead, we're going to get into some trouble here. We've got all these guys. We're going to use our Earth Elemental. We're going to put down our Healing Stream Totem. We're going to start casting our Chain Lightning, just try to get some damage in on all these targets. While our Earth Elemental is out, we can hit our Astral Shift for some damage reduction. We're going to want to put our Flame Shock on something, pick a target, and Lava Burst it. Go ahead and start hitting our Chain Lightning again. If we really wanted to, we could cast our Heroism here, but we're not going to waste that. We keep getting silenced by this guy, so we're going to kill him off. We're going to cast our Flame Shock, cast our Spirit Walker's Grace so we can keep moving while we're casting these spells. Maybe get a little bit away from this. Go ahead. We've got our Riptide, so we can cast that on ourselves. Cast our Healing Surge because we're going to get that increased critical strike, and we're back up to full health. Go right back into our Chain Lightning. This is going to get pretty hairy once our Earth Elemental goes away, which is getting pretty close. Alright, so we're going to hit that. Make sure we have our Flame Shock up. We're going to go into our Lava Burst. Go ahead and use a Riptide into a Healing Surge. Alright, we want to take out these targets with lower health first, because that guy with the higher health isn't going to go anywhere. Alright. Got a double proc of our lava surge there. That helped us to burst that target down. Alright. Going to our lightning bolts. Go ahead and cast our Riptide into healing surge. Get ourselves healed up here. And this guy should be dead. So that would have been a lot harder if I hadn't have used my Earth Elemental. Earth Elemental has a long cooldown, so you're not always going to be able to do what I did just there. But you can take on, I mean, that was 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, like 8 enemies, maybe more if any of them faded away already. So able to kill 8 enemies. It took a little while, but able to do it with the Earth Elemental cooldown. I would say, you know, maybe 4 enemies or so. If you don't have your Earth Elemental. Now, we did have the guy with a lot of health there, as well as an elite demon in that group. So that made it a little bit more difficult. But, you know, the possibilities are there. You're just not going to kill everything super fast, and you've got to use your defensive cooldowns to make sure that you are surviving, because it's going to take you longer to kill everything. So I could drop a healing stream totem here and just make sure that I stay nice and healed up. Go ahead and target this one over here. Alright, so we're going to go ahead and take on this target here. This is a rare spawn. We're going to show, you know, about how quickly we'll be able to kill off one of these. This guy's going to cast an ability on us. You know, we could put out our Riptide if we wanted to. And pretty decent. We got some nice Lava Surge procs in there, so we got a couple of free, or not free, but instant cast Lava Burst to use in there. And that's it. That is the build for open world content on the Restoration Shaman. I hope that's helped you to understand it a little bit better and giving you the confidence to get out there on your own Restoration Shaman, try out some questing, leveling, see if it's a specialization you'd like to play in Battle for Azeroth. If you liked the video, you know, throw a thumbs up or whatever you want to do to encourage me to keep making this content. And I hope you have a great time in Battle for Azeroth, and thank you for watching.